My daughter called me broke in her wedding speech. And I smiled while 100 guests laughed, because none of them knew I owned the venue. If you have ever had your own child put a knife in you with a grin and a microphone, you know the way the room tilts. The way every eye cuts to you. The way you feel your body get very, very quiet inside, the way it does when you bleed and no one can see. It felt like a bad dream wrapped in white roses and rented crystal. She stood there, my beautiful girl, in a dress that looked like morning light, and said into the mic, "My mom couldn't help much with the wedding. But she's always been rich in love." A pause. A little tilt of her chin. "She's been broke all my life, so she's used to it." Laughter. I saw the groom's mother, Lila, throw her head back, one hand on her pearls. Even my ex-husband clapped his hands together and smirked. His wife Taryn swiveled her eyes to find me, in the third row, and smiled like a cat. I did what I've done my whole life. I pressed my tongue against the roof of my mouth so I wouldn't cry. I squeezed the stem of my glass. I nodded a thank you when the waiter set a roll beside my plate. I watched the chandeliers tremble in their own light. No one noticed the way Maggie, the event manager, caught my eye from across the room and shook her head slow, like, "Hold on, maybe I should go back." To the start of the quiet. I was 22 and pregnant when Tom walked out, back when he was still selling mattresses and ambition. "I can't be this," he said. "I can't be a dad without being a somebody first." I worked nights at the hospital laundry and mornings at a diner. And on Sundays I scrubbed the floors of a modest little event hall called the Lark, where the manager let me bring my baby in a bassinet so I could rock her with my foot. My daughter slept through quinceañeras, through salsa lessons from the kitchen staff, through a bar mitzvah where the boy kissed his mother's cheek in the middle of Hava Nagila. She grew up in steam and soap and love. I was broke in numbers. I was not broke in spirit. Years later, after 1,000 small humiliations, paying late fees with nickels, counting gas miles like prayers, fixing holes in sneakers with duct tape, my little side business cleaning offices became something bigger. Word of mouth. A contract with the city. A fleet of vans. At 49, I sold it. No one knew the number except my lawyer and Maggie. I wrote checks to women who were where I had been. I paid off my mortgage. I bought myself a second-hand car that smelled like orange peel and hope. And I said nothing. Why? Because I learned that money makes people cruel or crazy. Because I learned that the only way to see a heart honest is to watch what it does when it believes you have nothing to offer. Because I did not want to be the ATM mother. I wanted to be a mother. And because I thought I had time to tell my daughter the right way, in a warm kitchen over stew, with her head on my shoulder, like when she was small. But weddings speed the clock up. They make people wild. They shake the truth out of the rafters. When she got engaged, she cried into my hair. "Mom, can you believe it?" I could. I had prayed for a gentleman. Then we started planning, and Lila and her checkbooks took over. "We'll handle it," Lila said with a smile that felt like a slap. I offered to pay for the dress. "We've already chosen couture," Taryn chirped, drifting by with her soft pink nails. "Maybe you can buy the veil?" The veil turned out to be imported lace that cost more than my first car. I came to fittings. They didn't look at me. I sent ideas. They responded with silence. They set up a bridal brunch and forgot to invite me. When I asked my daughter about it, she said, "We thought you'd be uncomfortable with the fancy stuff." "It's okay, Mom. You're simple. That's why I love you." Simple. I swallowed the word like a fish bone. I wanted to pull her into my arms and shake her at the same time. Where had I failed her? Had I raised a girl who confused flash with substance? But then she asked me, "Will you speak at the ceremony? Just for a minute?" And my heart turned back to water. "Of course," I said. "Of course." I visited the Lark to see if they might want to host the wedding. The old manager was gone. A new woman ran it. Maggie. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and bright eyes, and when she saw me she stepped around the desk like a woman who finds a lost sister in the grocery store. "I know you," she said. "You scrubbed my stage when I was 14 and my mother cleaned here. You would sing to your baby while you mopped." We sat on the stairs and told the truth. The business was struggling. The pandemic had snapped it like a twig. She didn't want to lose it. I didn't want the Lark to become condos. That old building had held my girl. I called my lawyer. We set up a little company with a quiet name. I became the owner, but Maggie was the face. We raised wages. We fixed the roof. We gave the dishwasher new shoes. We booked the wedding at a deep discount and never told Lila she didn't have the leverage she thought she had. So by the time my daughter lifted that microphone and called me broke, the room she stood in was a room I had saved. The servers bringing out the salmon had their sick time covered because of me. The pianist's hands were insured because of me. The candles trembling in the sconces burned because of me. But I had kept quiet. Too quiet. I think some part of me wanted to see who she had become, to test a thing I should not have tested. I thought, if I tell you I can buy the world, will you still bring me daisies? Or will you bring me a list? She brought the list. Little digs. Silly jabs. A joke about me bringing leftovers to Christmas for budget reasons. A line about how she had always dreamed of leveling up into a family like the grooms. Tom and Taryn smiled and smiled. What do you do when your child rubs your face in old dirt on the cleanest day of her life? Do you walk out? Do you cry? Do you fling money like confetti and watch everyone blink? I set my glass down. I stood up when it was my turn. My legs felt like someone else's. The band quieted. Maggie squeezed her hands together in front of her heart. My daughter handed me the mic without looking me in the eye. Thank you, I said. My voice sounded like a porch at night, old planks and steady. I'm not good with microphones. I'm better with mops. A ripple of laughter, gentler than the one before, like people weren't sure what side to be on. I looked at my girl, then at the giant cake that looked like a terraced city. Then at the chandeliers that knew me better than some of my blood. When you were a baby, I said. We lived in a little apartment above a nail salon. The heat clanged like it was angry to be used. We would come down here, to this very hall, on Sundays after weddings, and I would mop the floors and hum to you. You loved the way the light hit the crystal. You'd coo at it like it was your friend. Someone dropped a fork. It clanged. I could hear people breathe. I'm not going to talk long. I just want to say 3 things. First, I love my daughter. I love her more than I love air. Second, wealth is not a virtue. It is a tool. Some use it to build tables. Some use it to build walls. I have seen both. I looked out at the faces that thought they knew my net worth because of the cut of my dress. Lila's mouth pinched, and third, I said, and now I could feel the steel in my spine, the bone I had bought with hard days. You never really know what a woman carries. You never know what's in her purse or her past or her bank account. You never know who owns the roof over your head. The room made a small sound, like someone letting go of a laugh that wasn't safe anymore. While we're here tonight, I went on. I want to honor the hands that made this night. The servers, the cooks, the florist, the band. I met many of them when I was younger, on the other side of this job. I have a gift for you. That was true. A little envelope for each, with a bonus and a note. I nodded to Maggie, and she whispered to her staff. And I saw shoulders go up and down like people swallowing tears. And I also want to say, I said. And my voice was calm and firm in a way it had never been when Tom talked over me. That I kept quiet about a lot of things this year. I wanted to see who would be kind to me without a reason. Who would seat me next to the kitchen and still wave? Who would leave me out of the photos but bring me a plate? I could feel my daughter finally looking at me. I kept my eyes on the mic. I had planned a gift for the bride and groom, I said. A murmur flitted around the room like a moth. Something big. A down payment. A nest. I slid my hand into my bag and touched the edge of the folder. But it has conditions, because I give with my heart. And my heart asks for respect. I heard Lila's bracelet clink against her glass. Silence. If you think your mother is broke, you can live like I did for a while and learn that broke can build palaces out of soup. I looked at my daughter then, full. I'm not broke. I did not tell you because I did not want to be loved by a bill. I own this place. I paid for your caterers to have a better Christmas. I have a foundation that sends girls like you and me to nursing school. I put your name on it months ago. My daughter's eyes widened. I watched her realize that the room wasn't just a room. That it had a heartbeat that matched mine, and I wrote a check today for a down payment on a house with a yard for the dog you want. It is in this envelope. It is yours if, listen to me, it is yours if you come to my table on Sundays, if you speak to me with dignity, if you remember the floors you danced on were once floors I mopped. If you can't do that, I will sign it over to the women who get off the night bus and go to class anyway. Do you think that was cruel? Standing there with paper in my hand and that look on her face? I ask myself sometimes, but then I feel the scar where I swallowed shame so many years and think, no. It was measured. It was a door with a threshold she could step over. It was a boundary. The room was a held breath. Someone sniffled. Tom stared at his shoes. Taryn fussed with her cuticles. Lila's eyes glinted like a challenge. My daughter, my girl who I had tucked into quilts in the winter with heat that did not laugh, stood still as stone. I was done. That's all, I said. Eat your cake. It's lemon. I put the mic back in its clip, kissed 2 fingers, and touched them to my daughter's wrist. It was cool and damp. I went back to my seat. The music came up like a relief. People didn't look at me. They looked past me. That's okay. I watched the servers peek inside their envelopes, and I watched their mouths open. I watched Maggie's eyes shine. I watched the bandleader lift his chin at me, a thanks. The chandeliers did what they do, they broke the light into shards and made everything look like a movie. My daughter didn't move for a while. Then she danced. She smiled. She drank champagne with her friends. She did what you do when your life bends and you don't know if it will quite break. When she came over once, with a glass and a laugh in her eyes like she could pretend it hadn't happened, I shook my head a little. Not now. Not with everybody watching. Sometimes love is not coming when called. I slipped outside to the terrace when the bouquet went sailing. The night smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. The strings of lights buzzed soft. I took off my shoes and let the cold stone cool me. I didn't hear her come out. I felt her. The air changes when your child walks into it, Mom, she said. Not Mom. Not Ma. Just Mom. A statement. A plea. She stood with her hands knotted in front of her, her dress a cloud caught on a bush. In the yellow string lamp light her face looked like the one that used to wake up beside me at 5 a.m. on school days and say, "Can we just not today?" She was still my little girl. She just had more hairspray. I didn't mean it, she said. That's how we joke at work. You know, roasts. Irony. Her voice shook on the word irony. I thought it was funny, I said. Maybe to people who never had to choose between shoes and gas. I patted the stone beside me. She sat like a penitent. I'm sorry, she said. She stared at her hands like they were telling a secret. I've been so wrapped up in everything. Lila and Taryn kept making these faces when you said things. I started hearing their voice in my head. It made me feel big. That's not an excuse. It's not, I agreed. I took her hand. It was clammy. I could feel the pulse in it. It's a reason. I could, just for a moment, see her the day she came home in 7th grade and threw her backpack down and said, "They laughed at my shoes because they light up. And that's for babies," and I had given her my own sneakers with extra socks and told her to dance anyway. She had danced. Somewhere between then and now, a breeze had blown and changed her. She swallowed. Why didn't you tell me? About the money? Because money is a spell that changes the faces of people. Because I wanted you to love me for burnt toast and stupid jokes in the grocery aisle. Because I was afraid you would stop bringing me your tears and start bringing me invoices. I wanted to say it right, I said. I wanted to tell you on a day that was ours. Come. Not a production. I exhaled. Too late. That's on me. She looked at me. Really looked. Mom, I don't care about the house, she lied. Then she tried again. I care more about you. I don't want to be the kind of person who becomes Lila. Or who forgets that I am yours. Then don't, I said. Simple as a recipe card. You come to my table on Sunday. We make soup. We talk. You tell me what Lila says to you when I'm not around. You listen when I say no. You say sorry when you hurt me. And I will give to you what I have. Not just money. The other stuff. The good stuff. She leaned her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was 5, and I was so tired I thought if I blinked more than twice I'd sleep standing up. We sat there in the hum of the lights. The party thumped behind the glass. Somewhere, someone shouted because they had caught the bouquet and couldn't believe it. Are you really the owner? She asked, a little laugh bubbling up, like a girl realizing her mother was also a superhero, but a very tired one. I'm really the owner, I said. I'm really the janitor. I'm really your mother. I can be both. She laughed and cried at the same time. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Not the envelope. A box. Inside was a ring, my grandmother's, small and not expensive, a dark blue stone like the sky over water. I had planned to give it to her in the morning when we had coffee, when the dress was back in its box and the hair was combed out. Plans change. This, I said, is from who we were before anyone decided they were better than us. Wear it when you want to remember who you are. She held it like it would shatter. I'm going to be good, she said. You're going to be better, I corrected. We both smiled. Then we sat quiet, because sometimes sitting quiet says more than performing loud. Inside, I knew the whispers had begun. People always whisper when a woman draws a line. Can you believe? How tacky. How dramatic. Let them. Let them live in rooms other people saved. Let them toast with glasses other people polished. We went back in. We danced. We did the ridiculous mother-daughter sway to a Motown song while Lila tried not to let her face crack. Tom stood near the bar and pretended that he had somehow created this strength in me. The cake did taste like lemon. The night ended. People collected favors. Someone left behind a clutch with a lipstick stain in the shape of ambition. I kissed my girl on the forehead and told her to go be married. She left in a car covered in streamers and good luck. When everyone was gone and the chandeliers were tired, I walked the hall with Maggie. She put her arm through mine like we were girls. We checked under tables for stray shoes. We counted the envelopes to make sure every staff member would get theirs. We split a last slice of cake in the kitchen with the night crew. Then I went home to my quiet house and set the envelope with the deed on the kitchen table. I made myself tea. I waited for Sunday. It's been months now. Do you want to know what happened? She came for soup. The first Sunday, late and blotchy, with mascara tracks on her cheeks from a fight with Lila, who didn't like the conditions of my gift. The second Sunday, on time, with flowers from the cheap supermarket, the kind with a cellophane wrap that squeaks. She chopped onions like penance. We learned how to talk like people who respect each other. We learned that apologies were well when they're used often. I gave her the envelope. She and her husband moved into a modest little house with a fenced yard and a lemon tree. She planted basil in a pot and texted me pictures like it was a baby. It was, sometimes she slips. Sometimes I do. Once she said, Lila thinks, and I put up my hand and said, do you? And she stopped and tried again with her own words. Once I wanted to throw money at something because the problem felt too big and I was too tired to sit with it. I breathed. I wrote a smaller check and a longer note. We are all learning. As for the rest of them, Tom leaves me alone now. Respect is quiet, or maybe it's fear, and I don't care which it is. Taryn watches me with the good sense of a woman who knows a lake has depths she can't see. Lila tolerates me in rooms and claims migraines afterward. That will have to be what it is. Maggie thrives. The staff has their bonuses. The lark sings louder. Do I regret standing up that night? Do I wish I had kept my fortune tucked under my tongue and swallowed the insult like I had swallowed so many? No, I had kept quiet for so long that my silence had become a lie. I had taught my daughter the wrong lesson by saying nothing. I had let people decide who I was based on a dress and a seat assignment. That night, I told the truth. This is who I am. Not the zeros in a ledger. The woman who builds a room and then invites people into it. The woman who can mop and own, who can give and ask in the same breath sometimes. In the early mornings, when the world feels clean and unpromised, I sit at my kitchen table and run my fingers along the grain and think about my girl's first sleep in her new house. I think about the light through the lemon leaves. I think about the way her voice shook when she said sorry and then steadied when she said she'd be better. I think about the laugh that burst out of her when the dog discovered the sprinkler. And I think about that room full of chandeliers and people who didn't know what to do with a woman who refused to be small and soft and grateful in the face of disdain. My daughter called me broke in her wedding speech. I let the laugh end. I told the truth. I gave what I could to those who don't get speeches, and I offered my daughter a door. I watched her walk through it, and when the house is quiet, when even the refrigerator hum falls asleep, I hear it, the sound of a mop on a floor that sings back. I hear it and smile. The reply of old wood to steady hands. The sound a woman makes when she stops apologizing for who she is and starts living it. The chandeliers don't know your bank account. They only know how you hold the light. That night, I picked it up. I still am. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.